All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to the Trainers Lounge, the show where we talk about anything and everything about L&D. All right, isang maulan na hapon po sa ating lahat. Kung tuyo dyan sa lugar ninyo, sana all. At dito ay maulan na. Since yesterday, I think. Yeah, since yesterday, tuloy-tuloy ang ulan. But I hope you're keeping safe and keeping dry. No, mahirap na magkasakit ngayon. Baka, alam na, baka bigla na lang may patrol unit sa bahay natin pag nag-post tayo. I'm feeling sick. Wag naman po sana, di ba? Alright. And for today's episode, pang 7th episode na natin. Wow, time flies so fast. We offer this episode to those na naghahanap ng bagong career or who wants to try getting into the learning and development. Paano nga ba maging trainer or paano ba maging part ng napakaganda at napaka-exciting na industry na ito. Alright, before we move on, guys, to all of our supporters, viewers right out there, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe sa mga pages namin. We have one at Facebook. You can follow us at Circle Logical Group and also CLD Philippines. The YouTube page po namin, you can see all of our previous videos. If you didn't catch all of our live streams from the past weeks, you can still see and watch them at our Circle Logical Group YouTube. So again, wag po kakalimutan to like, and wag po kakalimutan to like, share, subscribe, and also follow na rin no, sa mga pages natin. Alright, so let's move on and meet our guests for today. And so here to join us on discussing how you can get into the L&D career opportunities is Mr. John Marvin Ong. So the current managing director of Unified Business Management consultancy with more than a decade of people management, human resources, and industrial relations professional. Consequently, he is also the HR head of Upscale Garments Corporation and Bert Lozada Swimming School Incorporated. He is a seasoned human resources professional with more than a decade of HR and people management experience in various organizations with diverse industry categories. He was able to effectively handle different facets of both HR department and client partnerships. Few of his expertise include learning and training, development, and also organizations and licenses include CLBP or the Certified Learning and Development Professional, Certified Human Resources Professional, Certified Payroll Professional, Professional and Compensation and Benefits Strategies, Certified Management Consultant, Certified Emotional Intelligence Practitioner, Certificate in Human Resources and Industrial Relations, Certified Total Rewards Associate of the Philippines, and also Certificate in Strategic Human Resources Business Partnership. Oh, ang dami na. Sana all. But anyways, yeah, here to join us to discuss how you can get into the L&D industry, Mr. John Marvin Ong. Good afternoon, Sir Marvin. Kamusta po?
Hi, good afternoon, Kevin. Good
Yan.
afternoon, everyone, and hope you're dry there now.
Oo nga. I hope so too sa'yo, sir. Kamusta ka dyan?
Yeah, pretty good. The weather here is better, I think, than where you are. Medyo
Oo.
nagda-dry up na, so it's
Oh.
good.
Well, it's been raining. Sabi ko nga, it's been raining here since yesterday. And we thought natapos na kasi nung weekend, no? Biglang umaraw eh. Lumitaw si Haring Araw.
Yeah. Actually, the basing from the weather forecast, medyo wala na daw tayong typhoon, but I think those are monsoon rains already.
Oo, ulan na lang. Pero that's good to hear naman, no? Kasi mas maganda na yung ulan-ulan lang kaysa sa typhoons.
Yep.
Mahirap na. Alright. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Sir Marvin, we're going to talk about career opportunities when it comes to L&D. So let's start off with some few questions. Alright. Well, the L&D industry, kung sasabihin natin siya as it is, marami naman siyang facets actually, no?
Yep.
Sometimes it's a common misconception that when you say I belong in the L&D industry, so some might think that it's just about what do you call this? It's just about being a trainer. Pero I think marami pa rin ang hindi pa alam yung mga other career opportunities when it comes to L&D. So let's start off well, in terms of career opportunities. Yan. What positions are commonly found in the L&D industry? So yung mga pinaka-common na pwede natin pasukan.
Okay. Yeah, Kevin. I think I would have to agree with you on that. That some people when they hear L&D per se, they're all thinking about training, teaching, but there's really something in depth to it more than what we can see that L&D folks are those people that are very good speakers, those people that would handle classes, but there are more beyond department. So if you were to ask what are the positions that are in the L&D function, well, there's a lot. Sometimes it is actually interchangeable to use L&D manager. Sometimes they use training manager or training and
Uh,
development manager. And still, on a bigger scale, we also have OD manager or the organizational development manager. And just like what I've mentioned, it's a part of a bigger organization. But if we're going to look at the function itself, under L&D, definitely we have instructional designers. These are the people who would either develop curriculum, study curriculum, or even create concepts, learning concepts, and learning models. We also have, of course, ito hindi mawawala, we have trainer, instructor, or we call them facilitator. Though other companies are calling them coaches already, given the mentoring skills that L&D people also have. Then we also have research and development. Most likely, we have internal and external. And lately, Kevin,
yeah.
we've been working on some of the new trends probably. Right now when we talk about learning and development, it's not just about people that are managing classes, especially with the new setup right now, like what we're having, this lounges corner where it's virtual.
Oo.
So with that, there's a new there are positions that are being available or open for learning and development team, like the system administrator, e-learning administrator, because some of the things or courses that we are running before are now automated and are now put into a learning system. So
Oo, the
there.
LMS, ika nga.
Yep.
So yun, in terms of what do you call this, career opportunity, marami nga naman silang pwedeng pasukan. It's not all about being a trainer, a teacher na usually we have in mind. You can also become a researcher, no? Doing the back end work. You can also become a manager. Na not necessarily you're the one who teach or conducts the trainings, but rather manages the trainings on what do you call this? On a managerial view. Ika nga. So
Yep.
marami talagang ika nga career opportunity to go into in this industry. And well, besides that, no, marami din kasi nag-iisip na what do I have to be a teacher then as a background ba? Probably the good question there is what are good roles and positions muna, no, before L&D that can serve as a stepping stone? Meron ba tayong mga ganong strategies?
Um well, Kevin, there's really no hard rule, no particular. Um I would say that learning and development, being part of HR, is more of a noble work. It's a professional work, but it's a noble work at the same time, where you also need to look into your vocation. Do you have the calling? Because the thing with learning and development is you have to have that heart, you have to have the passion to learn, and at the same time the passion to share. So if you would ask, um is there any stepping stone or prerequisite before I would go into an learning and development role, I would say there's none. But definitely there are certain skill set or competencies that is prerequisite for you to be successful, right? So there are different facets actually. Um, let's look into an organization. So if you are an HR person and you want to venture to a learning and development path, definitely you have to go into the research and implementation part where you need to check where are you relevant and how will you be able to help out. Why? Because in HR, there are certain facets that can be linked to learning and development. Likewise, if you're in operations, um, there are also linkage
Mhm,
before you
mhm.
go into a learning and development phase. For example, you can start from the grassroots as a frontline staff, and then know the ins and outs, know everything about the business. Then eventually you will be a subject matter expert. Now, from being a subject matter expert, you can now venture on into an OD specialist role where either you can be a facilitator, you
Mhm.
can also be a research development if you're really into analysis and analytics, or probably you can also be into instructional design if you are into models and learning processes.
I see. So, and rather than thinking of careers as stepping stone, we should focus more on the skill sets na kailangan natin dalhin. Ika nga, right? So,
Definitely.
yeah, if you were to be given the chance to list down five, ayan, sige, five skill sets that an aspiring L&D practitioner should have, what would be those five skill sets?
Ah, okay. Probably I would say in acronym FACET. FACET. Okay. The first one would be the facilitation. Um being a learning and development person, you should have the passion to facilitate. The facilitation doesn't necessarily mean that you are in front or you are in the camera holding everything. Facilitation can be both in frontline where you will be the one to discuss, of course, and at the same time facilitation can also be in a project management per se, where you will be the one to handle the checklist. If everything is in order and all that, then you do the facilitation, right? So there. Next is letter A, analytical. You should have an eye for information and an eye for details so that you'll be able to, number one, be able to appreciate the learning and at the same time be able to contribute whatever it is for the enhancement or the development of a certain model. So it's A, analytical. Letter C is creativity. So basically, being a learning and development person, I would say that we go beyond the cliche that learning and development people are bookworms. No, we're not. We're creative. Why? I think Kevin, you would agree on this that being a learning and development person, you have to know the different learning capabilities of your audience, and at the same time, you have to know what interests them, so that you would be able to really capture their attention, and at the same time, you'll be able to create activities, create learning modules and workshops that would really help them out in a certain training session, right?
Right.
Then the next letter is E. I think one of the personal trait that a learning and development person should possess is enthusiasm. They need to have the eagerness to learn and at the same time the appreciation to learn. Being an L&D professional or being an L&D expert uh, doesn't necessarily follow that we know everything, right? Um, it means that we have that passion to learn and the passion to share at the same time. So enthusiasm, and of course, the last letter, the letter T, training. when we talk about training, it's not about just teaching. You should also have that sense of commitment and accountability, that you want people to really learn from you, people to get one or two pieces from you at the same time. And when we talk about training, it's talking about accountability, that you are committed to help the people. So yeah, five letter competencies, if you would ask: facet, facilitation, analytic, analytical, creativity, enthusiasm, and training.
All right. Wow. That was actually a good acronym. Saktong-sakto, di ba?
Yeah.
So, yun, for anyone who's well, thinking of entering this industry, and tandaan nyo lang, do you have the facet? Parang ganun siya.
Yep.
All right. Well, moving forward now, so we've talked about the opportunity, mga roles, and what person should prepare for, rather than the career path, but rather a skill set na dapat dala. Next is punta na tayo sa technical side niya. Are there any technical naman na requirement when it comes to becoming an L&D? You know, such as experience, etc.
Um, I would say, Kevin, it's not an essential, but it's a good to have.
Okay.
Truth be told, in the Philippines, or especially in the career profession, sometimes our skills would not be enough for us to command authority, or for even us to command credibility. So for me, I would always tell my staff, my students, that if you can further take assessment certification that would really give you that credibility, and that if I would say it, the it's more, it's not a license, but it's really more of a credibility building for you to have that certification. Just like us, Kevin, you are a CLDP, I am a CLDP. How did we earn the CLDP? Definitely years of experience, then training, and then assessment. It really helps. Why? Because if you would go into meetings or even in trainings, and you would introduce yourself with a CLDP, definitely it would say something, right? So essentially there's really none, but I would strongly encourage people to look into certification program, certification body, or even advanced studies, so that it would help out, definitely. Number one, in terms of experience and network, and number two, you'll be able to really give mastery and justice, especially to learning models, or to other developmental models that can be used depending on the field. Because in the field of learning and development, we're not just into a classroom base, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Maraming
Dami,
facet.
dami.
Yes. We can handle learning and development in manufacturing. We can handle learning and development in medical field, in the BPO field, in the academe field. So there's a lot.
Yeah, and I agree doon sa ano, sir. Kasi nga naman, wala namang course or wala namang program sa college or university na BS L&D.
Yeah.
Or baka, mali mo, magkaroon. But yeah, siguro the next thing that we have is bachelor's secondary education or basic
Mhm.
education. No? But it still has a different, ano kasi, it still has a different discipline. I myself, well, some of the viewers will already know this, pero yun, I myself started off as an academe, or I started off at the academe. So I started teaching as senior high school year back then,
Wow.
before I entered the L&D. Although quite short, nung pagpasok ko sa L&D, I remember na nakita ko yung difference na, okay, so even though I finished my bachelor's degree na secondary education, pa siya kasi, well, the student different, yan. So sabi ko sa sarili ko, how do I further my skills? How do I further develop my career? Now, When I was given the chance to take CLDP and thankfully, sa mga viewers po pala, if you don't know, ako po yung nag-handle or I currently facilitate the Certified Learning and Development Professional. And when I started doing that, tama ka dun sa you create networks, you get to check up on your
Yes.
skills, right? I get to talk to other L&D people na they would say, oh, yung CLDP or itong certification na to, medyo nakatulong sa akin when it comes to checking out kung nasan na ba ako. Kasi mahirap
Definitely.
na pagpasok mo sa industry. I think any other industry naman mahirap yung when you get the chance to enter it and then you stop developing yourself in terms of that industry. Right? Parang nonsense. Nagsasayang ka na lang ng oras mo. If there's no growth, why are you staying there? Ika nga. And if walang opportunities, ang kinaganda naman with L&D industry, you get the chance to do it yourself, no? You get to research trainings for us, you get to join certifications or programs to help us develop. Yan. Right.
Yes,
Well,
definitely.
yeah.
Ganda pala ng story mo, Sir Kevin.
Oo.
Yeah, even myself, I am not an L&D person from the very beginning.
Mm.
In college, I took up accounting economics. Just
Accounting.
imagine. Yeah.
Layo.
And yeah, and then I ended up as an HR practitioner. And
I see.
one of the things that made me love L&D is after I took my licensure in TESDA. So I got my licensure in TESDA as a skills instructor, and from
Mm.
there on, I fell in love with training, and then further on, learning and development. So here I am with you,
Mm.
your fellow CLDP. Yeah.
Yan. I see. Wow. So, ayun nga. Actually, sa ating stream ngayon sa Facebook, I posted a poll. I asked them, or I asked our viewers, did you start off your career right away as an L&D or not? Actually, may tatlong options doon eh. Yes, no, kinda. Kasi ako, I would say kinda eh. Yung sagot ko kinda. Kasi I was still in the, teaching business. Pero ibang ano nga lang. Hindi nga lang corporate. But ayun. So sa mga viewers po natin, no, we have a poll there and also the comment section. Feel free to share your stories naman sa amin. How did you get into this wonderful industry? Das mamaya basahin natin yung mga ibang examples dyan. Alright. Oh, by the way, isa sa mga viewers natin what do you call this? Nag-message or nag-comment. Roxy Tori says, I think trainers need to invest in themselves even on their own. Oo nga naman, di ba? Kung di tayo masuportahan ng company, well, it's good as well to invest on our own.
Definitely.
Well, regardless naman kung saang channel ka manggagaling, as long as there's development, that's good to know, di ba? Alright. Up next. Ito, siguro medyo tricky na, or hindi naman tricky, but rather siguro eye-opener sa mga bago or hindi pa nakakapasok. Are there roles in the industry that doesn't focus on teaching and training? Ayan.
Um, I think there are. Like what I've mentioned earlier from the onset of our session today. L&D is really not all about frontline teaching or frontline training. There's also research and development. There's also instructional design. So if you have the passion to learn, the passion to teach, but doesn't really love to be in front of everyone, then probably the instructional design is for you. Why? Because you get to develop learning models, you get to implement learning strategies, and at the same time develop the curriculum or the content itself. So yeah, there are positions that will be available. Also right now, Kevin, it's part of the trend that some of the IT folks, software developer, they're
Yeah.
into learning and development. They engage into learning management system. So you don't need to
Oo.
really think too much, yeah, about the curriculum. All you got to do is to be creative, because sometimes they gamify it.
Oo nga naman. Well, if you were to choose, no, siguro hindi naman yung pinakagusto, but rather, ano yung, besides sa training itself, yung teaching, ano yung favorite mo or gustong-gusto mong ginagawa in the facets of the L&D industry?
Um, for me, it's really the ID or the instructional design, Kevin, because
Mm.
I get to mix and match.
Oo nga naman, oo nga
Yeah,
naman.
because there's a lot of dictionary of models
Mhm.
and processes out there. Pero kasi there is no single model or no single process that would fit for everyone,
Yeah, that's
right?
true, that's true.
So it's a continuous growth. Now, being an ID person, you get to mix and match, and then you get to further develop certain ideology so that the learning capabilities would be enhanced and the learning outcome would be met.
I see. All right. Well, ako naman probably research, right?
Oh,
Finding new ways. Because when I was teaching in the academe, nagturo kasi ako research. So I
ah,
kind of took it upon myself in expanding what I know. No, I got the habit of trying to find out new things or trying to figure out things why they work or why they don't. Parang ganon. So on my end, research ang exciting para sa akin. No? You get to basically experiment.
well, that's a good that's actually a good eye,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin. You know what? Research is actually a gift because if you love to research, you get to know a lot of things, and then you get to have the idea why these things happen, why these things occur, because you do have the historical background. And
Diba?
from there, you can start looking into how can you be relevant,
Mm-hmm.
how can you be a contributor, and how can you be successful. So yeah, I admire you for having that research acumen in you.
Ayun. Oo nga. Kaso, as of the moment, iniiwasan ko muna yung thesis ko sa masters. Medyo stress pa. Pero
Good.
mababalikan din natin yan. Mababalikan din natin. Alright, next up here we have, I have a question naman na, what do you call this? Parang other chances na rin for those who are in the L&D na rin siguro. Aside from corporate career. Kasi when we talk about L&D, pumapasok din natin sa isip agad natin is corporate setting, right? Companies, businesses, ganyan. But aside from corporate, opportunities, are there any available jobs for an L&D person?
I would say there are a lot, Kevin. Right now, honestly, with how pandemic changed the platform, not just in the corporate but also on a day to day our day to day life, there's a lot. Being an L&D person, you can also start your either if you want to venture out in teaching and you don't have the the license just like you're an LPT, I know, but some people doesn't have the license to teach but wanted to teach. The first thing that I can recommend is you go for an ESL, English as
Mm,
second language. There's a lot of horizon out there,
yeah.
that can help you out, different platforms, different companies. So that's one. So it's a virtual, I you can either go for a full-time, part-time, or even a consultancy work out there. Another aspect would be in terms of the government compliance. Being a learning and development, it would help you because of your eye on details and analysis and your eye on compliance and understanding. You can now be an expert in that field where
Mm-hmm.
you now do the consultancy work. It's also L&D, though it's not in a classroom base, but
Uh,
you can lead the board of directors, you can lead the owner or the HR head in terms of certain compliance. So it's one. If you were asking, sir, can you cite any sample of that? Well, number one I can cite is um occupational health and safety. So it's
Osh.
it's one thing right now that our Department of Labor and Employment is very strict on, especially the Bureau of Working Condition, is the implementation of the mandatory 8-hour training.
Osh training.
So
Oh.
yes, the OSH. So aside from CLDP, you can also take safety officer level, so that you can also teach and do the orientation yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say really that the baseline for this one is having a learning and development certificate. So you would understand further how or what approach can you use to deploy certain program, because definitely if companies would get you as a consultant, you need to also look into the nitty gritty of that particular company, especially what type of industry, what are the regular hazards that are being met, and all of those. And lastly, I would wanna share, Kevin, that apart from what I've mentioned, being a teacher or an ESL or being a safety officer, being an L&D expert, you can also do deployment of certain projects or program. Right now, there is a clamor for development program because technically, um, the Gen X and the Gen Y and Z are in the supervisory and managerial level already, and we have a lot of millennials that are in the workforce, right? So there is a demand to come up with learning and development as well as management development program. So as an L&D practitioner, both you and I, Kevin, can actually team up and come up with our own structure and offer it. So there's really a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, yeah, I see. Yeah, I actually agree na hindi ka naman kailangan makulong sa teaching lang. And you have mentioned that OSH is actually mandated, no? Just imagine how many companies out there require required magkaroon ng safety officer. So it is something that you can look into. And yeah, in terms of ESL, I think my first job when I was a teenager was as an ESL teacher. And I remember the structure, no? Sabi ko, you don't have to graduate as a bachelor of secondary education or a basic education. You people who develop kung ano yung tinuturo namin, right? So it is kind of related to L&D. So if you want to look into that, no, work with kids or people who want to learn that. And also may mga certifications din naman silang pwedeng kunin to be certified as ESL teachers, right? The TOEFL, IELTS, things like that. Which I wanted to take that Hindi lang nagkaroon ng chance.
Really? Well, I think you can still, but ako for me, Kevin, personally, what I would want you, or what I would, if ever given a chance to partner with you, I think you are better off to take a universal trainer certification because of your experience and uh the way you.
Since last year or more than a year na. I still remember nun, March 2020, when everything shut down.
Yeah.
I was, nasan ba ako nun? Nasa labas ako nun and then nagkaroon ng order. Oh, bawal na sa labas. Ay, umuwi ako. But yeah, it's been more than a year. And what are the adjustments na pumasok sa ating industry? Para naman din alam ng mga gustong, who are new to this industry. Ano yung mga adjustments na nangyari? Things that we started doing na hindi common back then.
Well, one very evident, Kevin, is the platform that we are
Mm-hmm.
using as L&D professionals. Previously, we always have the face-to-face interaction, but right now, gathering is really impossible. Not just because it's mandated by the government, but for our own safety. Don't engage into any gathering first, right? So that's one very evident change. Right now, we're all using virtual platforms whenever we deploy program. So I think before it's hybrid. Sometimes we do the virtual, especially if it's overseas, and do face to face if it's local. But right now, everything has changed and has been shifted to virtual. So most likely that's one change that is very very big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because previously, if you are really good in face to face interaction, we really cannot say that it's tantamount to being good in virtual session, right?
Yeah.
right?
It's
Kasi minsan meron iba they are gifted with charms. So whenever they walk into the room, they already command the respect and the authority. But it's a whole new different ball game when it comes to virtual meeting. So
yeah.
not only that you should know your facilitation skills, but you should also have the technical know-how,
Oo. Which
right?
naramdaman din no ng counterparts natin in the education industry na a lot of teachers are still na nasa workforce pa na medyo may edad na, let's say, na hindi isanay sa ganitong setup. And it has been one of the challenges para sa kanila to adjust in a different setting. So same din sa industry ng L&D.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one. And then probably one thing that I can cite as well, because you've mentioned that you're into research, is the research capability. Because before we can have like the survey can be done through, the pen and paper survey. Sometimes we do interview session when we walk around the company, and then we start, randomly interviewing people. But right now, all of those are gone. So right now, you have to be creative in how are you going to get, certain data, certain information from people around you. Either you do it on a virtual survey, and sometimes ito nga very trending,
Mm-hmm.
the gamification. They
Oh.
sometimes is when the data privacy has been enacted. Kasi in terms of the research part, of course,
Mm-hmm.
hindi mo pwede basta-basta gamitin, or you cannot simply use and divulge information that you have gathered in your research activities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it has been changed even prior the pandemic, but I think it's a good change. What do you think?
Uh, I think no sa akin, when I got back into the or when I got into this industry, medyo paano na pausbong na yung mga new
Okay.
trends, no? Technology na tatama rin na ang audience mo. Your students will not listen to you if you still follow the traditional PowerPoint, you and the class.
Yeah.
That's why we started developing icebreakers no na
Yes.
literal na tatayo like all three aspects of learning, empathy, knowledge, and physicality, tinatamaan. Because if not, kawawa ang retention mo. And
Definitely.
when I started studying about gamification, although I've applied it before since bata, yung mga tinuruan ko at first, no, mga senior high schools, lalo na yung mga yan, they're in their rebellious years, ika nga. So if you cannot capture their interest, mahirap. And yeah, when I got into L&D, sabi ko, ay hindi, matatanda na yung mga to, sigurado makikinig yung mga to. Well, that's not always the case. Let's put it that way. That's not always the case. That's why akala mo hindi mo na kailangan gawing creative, hindi mo na kailangan gawing parang exciting. No, you still have to do it, albeit in a different manner or in a professional manner pa rin naman. Syempre, you cannot treat them as kids. Ika nga. So, I think yon isa sa mga challenges yon when I got into teaching na or conducting my own trainings virtually. Especially, di mo naman pwedeng patayuin yung mga yan. Nasa harap nga ng computer, di ba? Like, what
Yeah.
games can you do? What icebreakers can you do to pick their interest and, join in the fun of learning during the session? All right.
That's good.
Uh, we have one question here as well. No? Uh, in terms of a skill set, kasi pinag-usapan natin, ano yung mga skill sets na...
Um Well, on top of my head right now,
Mhm.
Kevin, I would say communication.
Hmm, communication.
As an L&D professional or as an L&D person, it's very critical for us to be an effective communicator. And that particular skill set or competency is really marketable everywhere you go. Um, well, truth be told, even on the start of your application, interview, if you are a good communicator, it would really come out, and definitely it would be something that your employer or your aspiring employer would really look into. And not only that, when you're already in the company, the effective communication skills that you have would really play a major role on how can you penetrate easily
Mm-hmm.
with what is the process. And definitely, Kevin, if you're a good communicator, you're also a good listener.
Yeah.
So you would be able to grasp information, grasp trends, and also in updates that you need to have, so you can speed up your onboarding process, right?
Mm-hmm. I see. Ako din, I think one of the competencies that could be used outside is, well, being able to multitask.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the L&D industry, hindi mo lang fino-focus yung pagtuturo eh. You have a lot of things to think about. You have to think about the lessons, the delivery, how will you do it, and at the same time, you have to manage the class right there and then. So, I think L&D professionals also have this innate ability to multitask, and that is a very good aspect of, or a marketable aspect of being a work employee or a workforce, di ba? And yeah, it translates very well also with other tasks other than, sa department natin or sa industry natin.
Yep. Well, definitely, Kevin. More than the competencies, the way I see it as an L&D expert or as an L&D professional, there is one competency that, well, it's debatable if it's marketable or not, but there is one thing that would separate an L&D person
Mm-hmm.
out of the rest. I think it's the discipline. Because
Ah, I
being an
see.
L&D, number one thing, research. You need to research on the topic that you have to deliver. Number two, you need to check on the checklist. Ready na ba yung, is my PowerPoint ready? Is my presentation ready? Are the technologies that I would use ready? All of those. And then while doing the program itself, there is a discipline for you to stay professional, at the same time stay creative and enthusiastic, so that you would engage everyone. And then the thing is, at the latter market, you go into the government, you go into private practice, or even your own business. I think that that is one of the virtue that you would bring into to your success.
I see. All right. Well, that is actually a good way to putting it. No? Um, n- Not all could understand easily nga naman, especially those outside of the industry. What to have or what do you get in this industry or parang anong nade-develop sa'yo. And well, yeah, it is nice to know all about those things para naman ma-apply nila if ever no they want to venture out of L&D. All right, and I think this is my last question for you today, Mr. Marvin. What affiliations or organizations of L&D people are present in the Philippines or maybe global as well? Ano yung mga pwede nilang tignan? Ika nga.
Well, I want to be honest with you, Kevin. There are a couple of certifying body really out there,
Mm-hmm.
depending on their practice, depending on their the from where will they start? Will they
Mm-hmm.
start from an operation perspective to an L&D, or an HR to an L&D, or even to a talent acquisition, a recruiter going to an L&D? So there's a lot. But I would say that uh one thing that made me engage to CLDP is the Philippine community itself. I
Ah.
really love the idea of having a Philippine network that works fine with me, because number one, before I go into the different levels, I want the basic one first. And the so you can check whatever certification that might apply for you, and from that certification you will be able to understand what are the certifying bodies and networks that you can actually go and venture into. um if you're listening from the very beginning of our session, Kevin mentioned you know a run through of my certification and my achievement. And I think that that's what made me keep on
Oo nga, ang
working
dami.
and
Kasi
furthering.
I could just imagine yung mga pinagdaanan mo, no? Learning those things. And mind you, hindi sila biro. They're not some hindi sila basta-basta na lang ano. They require research and what they call this, looking into on your own. Ika nga. But yeah, yeah.
Yep. So basically, Kevin, I know that that's the last question,
Mm.
but just to share with our viewers, if you are really interested into venturing into a learning and development profession, either as a starter or you are now in the L&D and you want to be a professional, the number one that you have to consider will always be your comfort zone. Where will you be relevant? So that's why I am telling you that the CLDP of Logica is really good because it's where most of the Filipino practitioners would start off. Because number two of the consideration would be what would be the relevant experience that would be critical for you to earn the certification. You also need to consider that kasi it's not just because you want it. You also have to gauge whether are you at that level for you to be certified already, or if you want to venture into a learning and development
Mm-hmm.
profession. And then of course number three, you have to check your resource, your time, your money spent, and all that. And I would really say that being part of the group of the CLDP in the Philippines really helped me because that's my stepping stone. And if I want to further the certification into either a license or a full-blown 4-year course, then that's the next step. But definitely on the first step, you have to check where your comfort zone.
Teaser. Actually, we are developing more certifications pa to offer to our HR leaders out there. And yun, no, sana maging katotohanan ng plano. So, abang-abang lang tayo ng mga bagong certifications that we would offer to anyone who are willing to further develop their careers and their personal skills. Ayan. Well, Mr. Marvin, we have some questions here from our viewers. So let's take a look. No? Mr. Rashid Salonga says, "What is your advice to those who wants to explore and pursue their career in L&D?"
Well, again, my advice, well, on top of what I have mentioned earlier in terms of getting certification, getting the network, and learning the trends, you also have to look into uh, is learning and development something that you really love, something that you really want to do? Because again, it's a vocation. More than a profession, it's a vocation. You have to got the heart so that you would be able to be successful. Um, what Kevin mentioned earlier, it's not an easy road to take. Definitely not. But I can say it's a fulfilling profession to go to.
Ayun, oo. And also, no, ako naman, it's not an advice, but more of a testimony. Testimony. Uh, the L&D industry has a lot of stories to tell because you get to meet a lot of people. And I love stories. More so if they are real. No? So I love literature, and when I started teaching, it's true that when you're a teacher, it's not just the students who are learning, but also you as the teacher. So when you get into this industry, there are ups and downs, but expect to learn and to know about stories that you haven't heard, and even stories that will help you, become a better person, professionally or personally.
Yeah.
Miss, sorry. Sorry, Roxy Tori, ayun. Again, commented, sabi, invest in yourself. LinkedIn Learning, for example, has a number of courses that could help you in the competencies you need. There's Coursera, Skillshare, and a bunch of other courses online that you can take. Oo nga naman, di ba? I think LinkedIn Learning is free, if I'm not mistaken. There are courses na free.
Yeah, there are foundational courses that are free, And then if you want to further get certain certificates or get certain credentials, then you have to subscribe. But definitely take advantage of all free
Free.
courses.
Oo nga naman. Free na nga, di ba? So, effort na lang.
Yeah.
Alright, next we have here Nigel. Given the pace of technology, more so due to the effects of the pandemic, what are your thoughts sa mga what are your thoughts that most companies might be forced to opt for L&D practitioners experience and competence competence, sorry, in the areas of learning technology such as e-learning, MOOC, e-mentoring tools, and etc. So, ano kaya ang mangyayari sa kanila, sa mga skilled sa ganun?
Um, well, for me, I think I was able to touch it earlier that for people with skill set other than training and teaching, they can still venture creation, as well as the learning management system. They would be able to translate it, and they would be able to facilitate, learning, because companies really right now are investing on platforms such as the LMS. But of course, the platform doesn't come, well, simply the platform. There will always be part where there will be people that needs to onboard users, participants, and then at the end of the course itself, there are people who would generate, scores, activities, and then put into an analytics and put a story out of all the data that has been gathered. So, system administrator, software developer, business analyst, all of those are some of the skills that might be trending for a more relevant L&D in the future. And I would say some of our L&D fellows right now are also into further studies, understanding visual basics, macros, and even getting into the software side, where they are studying computer engineering or software engineering. So all of those.
Ayan. So, well, yeah, magiging malaki ang trabaho nila. But still, there are other facets pa rin naman na hindi mawawala. Let's not forget that L&D needs to still have people at the background. Kasi kung wala sila, kung puro expert na lang sa technology, wala ding mangyayari.
Definitely.
Ayan.
Definitely.
So I think that's all for today's episode. Sir Marvin, thank you so much for joining us. I enjoyed our time discussing how to help others enter this wonderful industry of ours. And if you have anything to promote, ayan sir, you're free to go to share sa ating mga audience.
Well, nothing so much. I just started questions, and Kevin and the group, thank you so much for inviting me over. I also enjoyed this afternoon session with you, and definitely, I look forward to being part of your future plans for future certification. I'm just a one message away. If you need any help, if you need contributors in terms of your research and development, your curriculum development and facilitation, just let me know.
Ayan.
Thank
So,
you.
they can find you on Facebook and LinkedIn as John Marvin or something. Isang tawag lang naman si sir.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
Yeah, so, alright, so that's it. Thank you so much, sir, and goodbye for now.
Goodbye. Stay safe,
Thank
Kevin,
you po.
and
Stay
stay
safe
safe,
then.
everyone. Bye bye.
Alright, and that was Mr. John Marvin Ong. And if you need help, ika nga sabi ni Sir Marvin, he is always free. Just message him. And they have services to help you set up your business or in terms of L&D to guide you on what to do. And that's it for our episode this week. I hope you learned a lot in regards to what they call this, in regards to entering the workforce of the L&D industry. Well, just a few words maybe from me, no? Hindi naman lahat ng trabaho madali or walang trabaho na easy go lucky. There are challenges when it comes to any job, but the beauty of this industry is that, as I said earlier, you get to meet people, you get to learn stories of other people, and you also get to learn how to develop yourself and how to further your professional and personal skills. So that's all for today. Again, I'm Kevin, and this is the Trainers Lounge, the show where we talk about anything and everything about L&D. Well, don't forget to like and share, follow our pages, Circologica Group and CLBP Philippines. And that is all for now. See you next week. Bye.